I always say, the best time to buy a home was 5 years ago. Okay.
Right.
Right?
True.
Because 5 years ago, rates were better, prices were cheaper, everything was so much better 5 years
Correct.
ago. And that's what makes the opportunity to buy a home the best right now,
Right
right?
now. Yeah.
Because when we look back on this 5 years from now, we're gonna be like, "So glad we didn't wait."
Welcome to this episode of Bits by Bacon. I am your host, Misty, and joining to me today is my friend, Rhonda Mitchell. She is the Homeownership Director at the Southeast Texas Housing Finance Corporation, also known as SETH, based here in Houston, and she manages homeownership programs and partners with lenders across Texas to expand the access to affordable housing. Thank you for joining me today, Rhonda.
Hey, thanks so much for that. And I know my name's a mouthful to say, right? So I go by Seth most of the time,
You're
and
going to
that's how
say Seth.
most of Houston knows us.
Yes. So you have a background in lending. What inspired you to transition into affordable housing space?
I'll tell you, hey, great question. So long time ago, I say back in the dinosaur days, I
Mhm.
was a loan officer and I did community reinvestment activities for a local bank. And
Okay.
so in doing that, right, my audience was low to moderate income home buyers, typically first time home buyers, and working with a sort of programs all across Houston. I worked with the city of Houston's program, the county programs, and of course, Seth. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you, as I worked with more and more programs, Seth kind of quickly became my favorite. And it got to where, like, if you came to me and you said, I wanted to use the city of Houston or Harris County or Fort Bend County even had one
Mhm.
back then, I'd say, oh, we've got somebody else in my office that does really great with those, but I do a lot of Seth. And I'll tell you, back then, programs were a lot different than they are now. They were hard. They took a lot of
Mhm.
time. I mean, closings were delayed. It was just a lot of hurdles to get through. And those old programs are nothing like the programs are now. So when the opportunity came up to go to Seth, right, my joke was, where else could I go to work that I already knew all the staff? I knew how to work their copy machine. I knew how to work their fax machine. I mean, I was in and out of the office all the time. So it was a very easy transition to go to work directly for Seth, just
That's
being so
awesome.
familiar with all the programs already. But
That's
again, I'm
awesome.
gonna tell you what we talk about today is nothing like what I grew up on.
With that leads me to my next question. What is the biggest misconception that a buyer has with this help or assistance?
Wow. So some of the misconceptions that we see, right, is the first one is I'm not going to get approved for it, right? It's
Mhm.
unobtainable. And I'll tell you, it is. I mean, gosh, we help so many home buyers. And it is a shame when you hear this, when you hear someone say that, well, yeah, but it won't work for me, right?
Mm.
It's not something that I'm going to get. And it is. I mean, the qualifications now it's so easy to qualify for. And our income limits, which, spoiler alert, I'll share those with you. They just went up yesterday. So
Awesome.
yesterday we just announced new income limits. And for Harris County, I'm going to see if I can peek really quick and give it to you. For Harris County, it's over 160,000. I'd have to
Wonderful.
look up the exact number for you. But the income limits are very generous these days. So again, qualifying, I'm going to say, most bars think that I can't. And then the second thing I see is the time it's going to take.
Mhm.
Right? Because we think that, oh, if I'm working with an assistance program, right? It's gonna take so much time. It's just there's going to be mountains of paperwork, and these people they're gonna just, torture me. They're gonna wanna see, who's your firstborn child, and we need to see everything you've done in the last 12 years. And it's not like that. It's so easy to qualify for these programs. In fact, many times you'll see they kind of walk and talk and feel like a regular mortgage loan. I mean, there's
Okay.
not any additional time that we create. It's not, to me, any harder to qualify and work with the programs than it is a regular mortgage loan. And a lot of times, especially for a home buyer, kind of feels the same. I mean, there's a little extra work the lender does, sure, but that's kind of like when you see that duck paddling across the water, right? Duck looks all
Mhm.
smooth, and there's a lot of work going on underneath. But it's
Right.
it's it just doesn't add any extra time. It doesn't create any delays. So I'm going to say that, the ease of use, is something that we see. And then finally, the another misconception is going to be that, is the benefit, right? Because so many home buyers think that, they can't buy a home to begin with, right? It's
Mhm.
just, that whole, you hear on the news, right?
Right.
We hear constantly on the news that prices are up, rates are up, and it's so hard on the home buyers and nobody can afford to buy a home.
Right.
And in fact, the opposite is true. I always say, the best time to buy a home was 5 years ago. Okay.
Right.
Right?
True.
Because 5 years ago, rates were better, prices were cheaper, everything was so much better 5 years
Correct.
ago. And that's what makes the opportunity to buy a home the best right now,
Right
right?
now. Yeah,
Because when we look back on this 5 years from now, we're gonna be like, "So glad we didn't wait."
for
And so
sure.
to know that you've got down payment and closing cost assistance, that can come in there and meet what is that biggest hurdle for our home
Mhm.
buyers, right? Cash to close. You've got home buyer, you've got down payment, closing cost assistance to get them through that hurdle, right? To get them to that closing table and make that purchase happen now rather than
Right.
5 years from now,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because everything seems to get more expensive.
For sure. And that's basically just a conversation that they're gonna have with their lender. That's the conversation starts with the lender of like, "Hey, I would like to start the process. What is out there for me?"
Right? And that's true, it really is, but and as a realtor partner, right, knowing that, that is something that you can fight, that misconception, right, that home buyer is gonna come with you at as it's impossible for me to do it, right? I'm
For
not gonna
sure.
get it, right? It's gonna take too much out of me, and I can't even buy a home now to begin with.
Right.
You can knock all that out with the knowledge, right, of how these programs work and how
Sure.
easy and accessible they truly are. I mean, we're dedicated, right?
Right.
I answer my phone when a home buyer calls. It's, they call. I had one home buyer call 4 times yesterday, with
Wow.
a question, right?
Right.
And that's okay. That's what we're here for. So we're here to take questions and we like having our realtor partners involved, in those conversations.
And how can realtors get involved? What are the resources for them? How can I know, but if we have a realtor listening that doesn't know, how would they get involved to learn more about the resources that you do have?
One of my favorite, most passionate things is education. I'll tell you, I love, love, love to educate. And so there's a lot of things that Seth does. We do what we call lunch and learns with our
Mhm.
realtor partners. And so at least once a month, I've got an opportunity, a very informal opportunity to come and learn more about Seth. In fact, I have a summer school coming up next week, and it's a
Oh,
really fun one. And I'll put that link up here,
okay.
so anybody can join our summer school. But we've got a summer school series this summer, in fact, and it again, nice little low key opportunity to come and learn about all the different programs that Seth has. We've got down payment and closing cost assistance opportunities. I've got some really cool, and I'm not going to put you to sleep when I say it, guys. So don't think it, but tax credits. I love a tax credit program. We've got those opportunities. But for our realtor partners, I've got some education opportunities. Again, very informal, right? No cost. Join me for an hour, learn a ton. But I also participate with Texas Realtors. And with Texas Realtors, we partner in with the Texas Affordable Housing Specialist designation,
Okay.
TAHS. So we participate with that educational opportunity too. Now that's a 2-day class. And it
Okay.
is a wonderful, wonderful way, if you want to learn as a realtor more about affordable housing programs. And it takes you on a tour. I call it the tour of Texas, right? It'll be all the assistance programs that are active, all our statewide agencies. We participate with it. Texas Veteran Land Board.
Mhm.
They join as well, so there's an opportunity there with Texas Realtors to take that Texas Affordable Housing Specialist designation training, and learn more about us. But again, as your partner, I wanna be there and I've got, a link here that I'll add to up here that, realtors can join my email list. So I've got an email list, and before you get panicked, right, I promise I don't bombard you. It's something that I send out almost once a month. I mean, sometimes if there's nothing going on, you won't get an email from me. But usually we've got something to share. And so that's an opportunity. That email is an opportunity for me to stay, up and staying up to date with you, and I'll share with you local trainings that are going on, statewide trainings, webinars, updates like my realtors got notified when my income limits went up. And so I
Mhm.
sent those out. And they went up for every location across Texas. So we're really excited to share that.
Awesome. Tell
Um,
me the difference between the MCC tax credit and down payment assistance.
oh, now you're talking my tune, right? So, for SETH, right, Southeast Texas Housing, so we do down payment and closing cost assistance. Now, I'm a local housing finance agency, like the state of Texas, right? They're a state housing finance agency, but I'm the local, right? Remember, I'm from Houston, right? So I've serviced very specific cities and counties that surround I call it the Harris Galveston market ish.
Mhm.
My idea down payment closing cost assistance programs that do go statewide. So my programs like Five Star, My Home
Uh-huh.
Plus, those programs go statewide because as a housing finance agency, our state legislature allows me to run those statewide. But MCC, Mortgage Credit Certificate programs, that's tax credit programs. Now, for those programs, I got to follow IRS regulations, and they say, hey, Rhonda, you have to stay in your founding jurisdictions, right? You can't go statewide with these tax credits. They're only for the jurisdictions that make me up, right? And so I'm a local, and I'm a conglomeration of some small cities and counties that got together. In fact, why realtors are so important for me? My first 2 board members were realtors. And so I was formed initially by it was 2 realtors, and they were board members, and it was give me a second. It was, Shore Acres and
Mm.
Texas City. They were
Okay.
they formed me, and so they reached out to some small cities and small counties and said, "Hey, come be a
Uh-huh.
part of us, come join us," and that's how Seth got to be. So,
Right.
I represent for my MCC, my tax credit, though, it's very specific to cities and counties, and those are gonna be and I apologize, I start sounding like a weather report, okay? So, my MCC is gonna be available, and I'll put those up here so you can see them very easily, but it's gonna be the counties of Austin, Brazoria, Chambers, Liberty, Matagorda, Walker, Waller, and Wharton. Okay, so if you picture the map right, you've got Harris and Galveston counties, so you've got a collection of counties that surround Harris
Right.
and Galveston. And then I also represent some cities, and these are gonna be cities within Harris and Galveston. So not the entire county, just these
Right.
cities. And those cities are gonna be Baytown, Deer Park, Dickinson, Lamarck, LaPorte, Pasadena, Santa Fe, Shore Acres, Texas City, and Tomball. So how's
Wow.
that? So I'm the little guys, right? So the little guys got together and now I can issue tax credits for them. And the MCC is a mortgage credit certificate. So it's a tax credit based on the interest a home buyer pays annually on their mortgage loan.
Oh.
And what makes MCCs so very, very cool is they work best in the environment we're in right now. When you're in an environment where mortgage rates are at their highest,
Mhm.
MCCs are at their best because
Mm.
the MCC is going to be a tax credit that's going to be a portion of the interest that the home buyer pays each year on their mortgage interest. So it's a tax credit based on the mortgage interest that a home buyer pays each year on their mortgage. So not one time, right? They're going to get that
Oh,
tax
each
credit
year.
each year when they file their taxes. And so the way it works, right? So if we had the math and I'll put the math up here, right?
Just so I'm understanding. So I get to deduct my mortgage and I mean the interest on my mortgage as a deduction every year. This is on top of?
Right. So as a homeowner, right, you get
Mhm.
to deduct, right? You get to let me try to think. Yeah, you take a as a homeowner, you take a deduction.
Correct.
Now this is going to be a tax credit, so it's a refundable tax credit. So
Got it.
a deduction is going to
Got it.
reduce, right, the income that you're taxed on. But a
Gotcha.
tax credit is actually money back. So this is a
Got it.
much bigger benefit than
Mm.
taking that. So you can still take some your mortgage interest as a deduction. But we
Right.
see that most homeowners, right, when they and especially those first time home buyers, right, 'cause they're buying the smaller homes.
Mhm.
We see a lot of times that whenever they go to file their taxes, right? they don't get to take advantage of the deductions, right? They take
Mm,
their standard deduction, that's a better
sure.
benefit for them, so now they're getting no tax benefit for owning a home.
Got
But
it.
when they have the MCC or the mortgage credit certificate, you're kinda guaranteed them a tax benefit for owning a home, right? Because they're gonna
Right.
take that tax benefit, that tax credit, whether they itemize or not,
Got
right?
it.
They can take the standard deduction, they can itemize, but they still get to access this tax credit.
And someone could access the MCC and not do down payment assistance, correct?
They can do the MCC alone, they can do the MCC with down payment and closing cost assistance,
Gotcha.
right?
Right.
So there's all kinds of benefits. So if I had a loan amount, and my example here, my loan amount was 260,000, my interest rate was 6%, right? The MCC itself provides a tax credit that's 20%. Now that's a
Mm,
SETH MCC. There's MCCs like all across Texas, and they do have their own rates.
okay.
But for SETH, our tax credit rate's 20%. So you get to take 20% of the interest you pay each year on that mortgage. And so in our example here, our homeowner would have paid $15,600 in mortgage interest that year.
Okay.
They get to take 20% of that number. So that's $3,120 that they get back in tax
Got it.
credit for making the same mortgage payment they would make without the MCC. I mean, that's how incredibly powerful, that MCC,
Right. These
that tax
programs
credit
are.
ability is, right?
Right.
Because if I told you, you can make your mortgage payment, $2,000, right? And you can make it every year and you can get $3,000 back, or you can make that mortgage payment and get nothing back. I mean,
Sure.
what
For
would you
sure.
pick, right?
Yeah. Money back every time.
And it's not just one time, right? They're
Right.
gonna get that tax credit ability every year. So think, each year, right, as you're amortizing that loan, right, you'll pay a
Right.
little less interest and a little less interest. So it's always gonna be 20% of the interest they paid that year, and that number is
Right.
gonna change. But, if they're getting $3,000 back a year after 10 years,
Mhm.
that's $30,000 for
Right.
making the same mortgage payment you'd make without the MCC.
For sure.
So it's another way to help homeowners. You've got your down payment and closing cost assistance. That's going to get them into the home, right? It's
Mhm.
going to help them with that cash to close. And then you've got your tax credit that's going to help that family make that mortgage payment more affordable while they're living in the home, right? So we got
Right.
two ways to
Right.
help our home buyer at the closing, and then we're going to keep them in the home, right? Keep them
Right.
in the home and keep them healthy and happy with the use of those tax credits.
For sure. That's
The
awesome.
tax credits they're like the unsung hero, and sometimes they can
That's
be more than the down payment assistance, right? And each is
right.
equally important. I mean,
Sure.
can't get a tax credit if you don't buy the home.
Right. Right. You're not gonna get it as a renter for sure.
No. So, yeah, the tax credit, is very special. Now remember that MCC, that mortgage credit certificate, is limited, and I'll put those cities and
Okay.
counties up for you. It is gonna be limited to those specific cities and counties, right, that are here, on the screen there.
Right.
So they've gotta be purchasing a home in one of these areas. And unlike my down payment and closing cost assistance program for the MCC, they do have to be a first-time home buyer.
Okay.
So,
That makes
there's a couple of differences between the programs.
for the down payment assistance, what does that look like for the buyer? They have to one, the lender approves them, and then they do have to watch a video or sign up for a program. What does that look like?
So for our down payment and closing cost assistance programs, and I'll tell you, of my programs, 5 stars my oldest.
Okay.
5 stars been out continually funded, which is sometimes, one of those misconceptions that get
Right.
out there, right? Those programs, they run out of money all the time.
Right.
But 5 stars been out continually funded since 2012. And we've added programs. We've had programs come and go throughout the years. My newest program right now is My Home Plus. And My Home
Mhm.
Plus, as I look at my notes up there, My Home Plus has been out since 2022, 20, no, 23. 23. So it's
Wow.
only been out a couple of years now. So My Home Plus is fairly new for us, and that's an exciting program as well. But both programs, right, are going to provide your down payment and closing cost assistance. They provide it in the form of a second lien.
Okay.
So there's no payments attached to that second lien. They're going to be forgiven over a period of time. With 5 star is my shortest forgiveness. It forgives in 3 short years. And then My Home Plus, now that's my newer program, and it's got some really cool buy down opportunities. So you can actually buy the rate down with My Home
Mm.
Plus, and it offers forgiveness in 10 years.
And for those listening, that means that you have to own the home. You cannot sell before that time period, or you pay back a percentage of what was left,
That is
correct?
correct, right? So I've got a second lien with 5 stars forgivable in 3 short years. And then
Right.
if you'd like to look at some better rates, right? So I've got better rates when we stretch out that
Mhm.
second lien. So I've got better rates and buy-down opportunities with My Home Plus. So really, it's almost like, it's like a Rubik's Cube when you work with these programs, right? And you're fine-tuning, there within those programs and what those programs offer. I mean, is your home buyer sensitive to cash to close? Do they need the
Right,
most assistance dollars? Are they sensitive
right.
to rate? Right? I mean, are they having trouble
Mhm,
qualifying? Is it rate that we've got to dial that rate down,
mhm.
to a super low rate? Is it the forgiveness period, right? I mean, are they like, oh, I'm not going to be in the house for that long. I
Right,
can't, I need a shorter
right,
forgiveness period. I know my goals.
right,
So, working with whatever those home buyers' needs are, that's where our lender partner comes in and they can find that program that is going to be that best fit for their client.
right.
But in any case, a home buyer's first step, right?
Mhm.
But very important to know, right? So, a home
Right.
buyer's first step for our program is going to be to contact a participating lender to get started. I mean, they're welcome to call me, but you know what? Their first step is to call that
Their
lender,
lender.
right? And the lender does all the work for us, right? So the lender is going to be the one that qualifies them for the mortgage, qualifies
Mhm.
them for assistance. The lender is going to underwrite that file. They draw closing papers. They do everything,
Everything.
right? And you're like, Rhonda, what do you do? And I'm like,
You get to give money.
I know I just sit around and give money out, right? I talk on the phone, I eat bonbons. No. But really the lender and I'm there for the lender support, right? So I'm
Sure.
supporting that lender behind the scenes, making them rock and roll. But really the lender does everything. And that's
Mhm.
why, for our realtor partners, I'll say, what's truly important is that relationship that you have with a program lender. I mean, and
Right,
knowing someone that is knowledgeable, experienced, and
right,
can really go in and understand these programs, share those options,
right.
and help find what is gonna be that best fit for that family. And you'll see, like, the lender, they kinda do everything from start to finish, right? So you want
Yeah.
that experience not only for that lender, but behind the scenes, right? You want that lender to have, underwriters that understand that program, closers that understand that program, and
Right.
and when you work with some of those experience, it's just a great overall experience for you, the realtor, and for
Mhm.
the buyer, for the seller, right? Everyone has a great
Absolutely.
experience. And I'll say in Houston, we are so fortunate. We have some great lender partners. So shout out to our
Yes.
lender in the Houston market.
Yes. They work hard for
They
sure.
do. They do. We've got some great lenders.
And so you already mentioned they just increased the income limit. So is there any other things coming down the pipeline for the future of these homeownership programs that you know about? Or hey, over the last 10 years, every 2 years they've increased this. Like, do you see a pattern or is there anything on the horizon that we should be watching out for?
We do have some cool things coming up. So, and one fun thing about working for Seth is, like I told you, I'm a local, right? So we're
Mhm.
small, we're nimble, we're fast. I like to think that we can, we've got some maneuverability, right? That
Mhm.
maybe state agencies lack. Right? Takes a
Right.
little longer to sometimes to get stuff done when you're bigger.
Yeah.
So we've got an opportunity, and I've got an opportunity that's in a pilot stage right now, and I'm
Okay.
getting ready to move it out of pilot stage. But I've got an opportunity coming up, hopefully that I'll be able to share very soon, with renovation products. And so
Okay.
we currently have a pilot program that allows for renovation, right? So it provides down payment and closing
Mhm.
costs and the opportunity to do renovations, which doesn't exist in other
Right.
DPA programs,
Right.
right? Our DPA programs are all about buy that home. I don't have any DPA programs out on the market that say, and you can put in a roof, or and you can add a
Right.
room, or a bathroom, or a
Right.
kitchen, right? So we've got an opportunity right now. It's in pilot stage, but it's renovation product, and it allows for down payment and closing cost
Mhm.
assistance from SETH. And I'm getting ready to expand that, take it out of, right? And out of that pilot stage and put it out there in the market. And when we do, we're actually adding FHA, 401k.
Whoa, okay,
Whoa! So
okay.
right now, renovation product is limited to a Freddie Mac product, and we're
Got it.
about to roll it out with even more opportunities, including FHA. So that is something that's very
Wow,
exciting coming soon. We've had
absolutely.
several talks here recently about that, so I'm looking forward to adding the renovation piece. I can't
Yeah,
tell you how excited I am.
and that
And,
opens
we've
the
closed several already, and it's
mhm,
amazing the value add,
mhm,
that those renovations do for a home. And so you've got this opportunity, to take some aging housing stock,
right,
and make it new and make it just really a powerful place for home buyers to
right,
live. I mean, it's really exciting. And when you look at the difference in what the payment is, right? Compared to where, this homeowner that's created, $80,000 of equity in these renovations, right? If they had to go buy that home at that
right.
inflated sales price, I mean, their payments are higher. Now we're talking about lack of affordability again. So there's really some incredible opportunities that exist.
My final 2 questions I ask every guest,
Okay.
what words of wisdom or advice would you give your 22-year-old self?
Wow. I mean, there's a lot that I would tell that 22-year-old self. Um, One of the things I think I'm going to say though is, you know, that at 22, so I grew up in the mortgage industry, right? And I'll say that my 22-year-old self what did not know what was in store for me, right? So I
Right.
mean, I was just living life. I was 22. Okay, ugh, wait, okay, hold on.
Mhm.
22, I was still in school. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of
So
people are, yeah.
yeah. Um, what would I get?
And a lot of people
No.
say they would tell them to not like, don't get stuck, don't be afraid to take a risk, like, just do
Okay.
something, right? And there's
Okay.
I don't know who said this, but my dad had said it to me, "Just
Oh,
move.
okay.
I don't care if it's the wrong decision, we can tweak it later, just do something, even if it's wrong."
Okay, okay,
So
and
just do
that's
it.
my earring keeps hiding. Um, so what I would tell my 22-year-old self, right, is that, first of all, I didn't know what was in store, right? I had a
Mhm.
totally different plan for what I was gonna do. At
Right.
22, I was in college and I was bound and determined I was gonna be a teacher.
Mm.
And I know, right? I got some opportunities
Yeah.
and went out and followed a different path. And, here I am. I went into the mortgage industry and I thought one day, I thought, how did I get here? I wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And I think that, you never, I think in some ways you stay, right? Right.
Mhm.
You remember what you wanted to be, and I think you carry that with you, and so
Right.
I say it like that because I think that that teacher, portion of me is still in me, right? And so
Yeah,
I know that whenever I get that opportunity, whether it's with my realtor partners or my lender partners, if I get the opportunity to educate you, right? And I
for
always
sure.
say, right, and my lender partners, when they call and ask me a question, right, and I can answer the question very quickly and say yes, no. But I don't wanna do it like that,
Right.
right? I don't wanna be that answer, right? I don't wanna feed them, I wanna teach them to fish.
Right, for sure.
So I think that my 22-year-old self is still there with me sometimes because
For sure.
I have that teacher mentality where I'm like, "Yeah, I could tell you, and I'm gonna answer you, but I'm also gonna tell you the page to find it on, the
For
website, how
sure.
to locate that answer for yourself so that, that way I can empower my realtors or my lenders, in the
Yeah,
future so that when they do have a question, right, they can say, "Oh yeah, she told me I should go look at this website and it's here
right,
and here's where I can find income limits or here's where
right.
I can remember the locations of what an MCC program covers." So I still think I have that teacher
Yeah,
drive in me,
you
where
do.
I wanna educate and I wanna be sure that, that I don't just answer the question, right? That I
Yeah,
empower you to feel like you're more familiar, more comfortable with the program because, it all goes back to the more comfortable our lenders are, the more comfortable our
sure,
realtors are, the more they're gonna use my program, right?
sure.
And so I'm going to say my 22-year-old self must, just is rooting me on, right? And
Yeah,
it was a good backbone for what I'm going to do now and how within the care we're going to take with our realtor and lender partners.
for sure. I love it. And then lastly, what do you want to be remembered for?
I'd like to be remembered for the help that I do, right? And I don't just mean that I ran a down payment program and people got down payment and closing cost assistance. I'd like to think that I've been a good partner, for my realtors, for my lenders, for my home buyers, and for my team members here at SETH, and
Yeah.
and for other, not only do I like to do reach outs and helps for those that give me business, right? For realtors and
Mhm.
lenders here in Texas, but, statewide, right?
Yeah.
There's locals like me all over Texas, and there's locals like me all over the US, right?
Right.
So there's housing agencies just like me, and we work together, right? And we help each other. In fact, I'm going to, the Florida the so it's called Florida Alpha. It's Affordable Housing Florida Local Affordable Housing Program. So, oh gosh, us and our acronyms, and I apologize for that. But I'm going to Florida's housing conference. I'm going to Florida's housing conference in July. And I've been asked to speak there, and share, kind of some of what we're doing in Texas and, and then giving Florida some advice and some ideas
Right.
for things that are working here in
Wow.
Texas. And while I'm there, right, that's an opportunity to see what's working in Florida and what I can
Sure.
bring back to Texas. So, yeah, I'd like to be remembered for helping others, right, and for
Cool.
being to be there and be that aid.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your expertise. And hopefully, our listeners today got a little bit of education and really appreciate you.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And remember, everybody loves bacon. Thanks for hanging out with me on Bits by Bacon. Be sure to follow, leave a review, and send this to that friend who always wants the inside scoop in and around the Houston area. I'll see you next time with more stories, real estate talk, and a little bit of everything in between. And remember, everybody loves bacon.